When you think of Germany, you might picture a country with a long, ancient history, but as a unified nation, Germany is actually younger than the United States, and even Canada. This fact surprises many, given Germany's deep cultural roots and its major role in world events. For centuries, the land we now call Germany was a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and free cities, each fiercely independent and often in competition with one another. These territories had their own rulers, traditions, and even languages, or dialects. People identified themselves as Prussian, Bavarian, Saxon, or Hamburger, not as Germans. Their loyalties were local, tied to their region, their city, or their ruler, rather than to any sense of a German nation. Local loyalties ran deep, with different rulers, laws, and taxes shaping daily life. Crossing from one territory to another could mean new customs, new currencies, and even new languages. The idea of a single German state was a radical, almost impossible dream for generations. For centuries, the notion of unity seemed out of reach, more a fantasy than a political goal. Yet against all odds, the unification of Germany would become one of the most dramatic turning points in modern history. In 1871, after years of conflict and political maneuvering, the German Empire was proclaimed, forever changing the map of Europe. The methods used to forge this nation, political genius, strategic alliances, and brutal warfare, set Germany on a path to both immense power and, eventually, catastrophic conflict. The choices made during unification would echo through the 20th century and beyond. The legacy of this unification still shapes Europe today, influencing everything from borders to politics and even the European Union itself. Nations are not eternal. They are built, often through struggle and compromise. How they are built matters, shaping their future and the fate of their neighbors. To truly understand modern Europe, we must journey back to the chaos and complexity that existed before Germany was born, a time when unity was just a distant hope. This is the story of how a fractured land, divided by centuries of rivalry and difference, became a nation that would go on to change the world in ways no one could have imagined. For 1,000 years, Central Europe was dominated by the Holy Roman Empire, a vast and sprawling realm that stretched across what is now Germany, Austria, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, and beyond. Its borders shifted constantly, but its presence loomed large over the heart of Europe. Yet, despite its grand name, the empire was a confusing patchwork of hundreds of states, principalities, bishoprics, and free cities, each with its own identity and interests. The map of the empire looked less like a unified country and more like a mosaic shattered into countless pieces. The French philosopher Voltaire famously joked that it was neither holy nor Roman, nor truly an empire, and he was right. The empire was a paradox, grand in theory, but chaotic in practice. The emperor, crowned in elaborate ceremonies, had little real power. Instead, authority was scattered among hundreds of rulers, kings, dukes, bishops, and city councils, each with their own armies, ambitions, and rivalries. The imperial court was a stage for endless negotiation and intrigue. Traveling across these lands meant crossing countless borders, paying tolls at every turn, and dealing with a bewildering array of local laws, currencies, and customs. Even a short journey could feel like an odyssey through a dozen different countries. This fragmentation, known as Kleinstaaterei, bred fierce local pride and suspicion of any central authority. People identified first with their town or region, not with the empire as a whole. The Reformation and the devastating 30 Years' War tore the empire apart, pitting neighbor against neighbor and leaving deep scars, both physical and psychological. The wars shattered communities and deepened the divisions that already existed. By the late 1700s, the Holy Roman Empire was a hollow shell, unable to inspire loyalty, unable to defend its members, and unable to adapt to the changing world around it. Its institutions were relics of a bygone era. It represented a shared past, a memory of what once was, but it offered no vision for a shared future. The people of the empire were united only by history, not by hope. The old order was stagnant, paralyzed by tradition and indecision, waiting for a shock powerful enough to break it apart and sweep away the ghosts of the past. That shock was about to arrive, in the form of Napoleon Bonaparte and his revolutionary armies. The world was about to change forever. The stage was set for the birth of something entirely new, a new order, a new sense of identity, and the dawn of modern Europe. The ghost of the old empire was about to be laid to rest, making way for the future that was waiting just beyond the horizon. Napoleon's army swept into the German lands, shattering the old order. In 1806, he dissolved the Holy Roman Empire and created the Confederation of the Rhine, German states now under French control. Napoleon consolidated hundreds of tiny states into just 39, introducing new laws and administrative efficiency. While his motives were self-serving, he showed Germans that unity was possible. French domination, however, bred resentment and a new sense of shared German identity. Intellectuals and poets began to dream of a unified Vaterland. The wars of liberation against Napoleon saw Germans from different states fight side by side for a common cause. When Napoleon fell, the old patchwork could not be restored. The idea of German unity had taken root. The question now, what would replace the shattered old world? The seed of nationalism was growing, and it would soon reshape Europe. The dream of a united Germany was no longer just a fantasy. After Napoleon's defeat, the Congress of Vienna created the German Confederation, a loose alliance of 39 states, but within this confederation, two powers vied for dominance, Austria and Prussia. Austria, led by Metternich, wanted to preserve the old order and suppress nationalism. Prussia, more dynamic and economically ambitious, had other plans. Prussia's creation of the Zollverein, a customs union, bound northern states to it, excluding Austria. This rivalry became the central drama. If Germany united, who would lead? Would it be a greater Germany with Austria, or a Prussian-led lesser Germany? For decades, this question simmered, unresolved. The answer would not come through debate but through force. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown. Into this rivalry stepped Otto von Bismarck, Prussia's master strategist. Appointed in 1862, Bismarck cared little for romantic nationalism. His goal was Prussian power. He believed in realpolitik, practical power over ideals. Bismarck famously declared, "The great questions of the day will not be decided by speeches and majority decisions, but by iron and blood." His strategy used war and diplomacy to isolate Austria and unite Germany under Prussian control. Bismarck engineered conflicts, manipulated alliances, and always kept his eye on the ultimate prize. He wasn't building a nation for the people, but for his king. The German people would get their empire, but it would be forged from the top down. The age of iron and blood was about to begin. Bismarck's plan unfolded in three swift wars. First, the Danish War of 1864. Prussia and Austria defeated Denmark, gaining control of Schleswig and Holstein. Bismarck then provoked disputes over these territories, leading to the Austro-Prussian War of 1866. Prussia's modern army crushed Austria in just 7 weeks. Bismarck offered Austria a lenient peace, expelling it from German affairs and forming the North German Confederation. Southern states remained independent, but allied with Prussia. The final act, the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. Bismarck manipulated France into declaring war, uniting all German states against a common enemy. The southern states joined Prussia, and the German armies marched to victory. The German question was finally answered, on the battlefield. The path to unification was paved with iron and blood. The Franco-Prussian War ended in a stunning German victory, a triumph that would reshape the destiny of Europe. The Prussian-led forces, disciplined and determined, had outmaneuvered and outfought their French adversaries on the battlefield. French forces were crushed, and Paris itself fell under a relentless siege. The city's proud boulevards became scenes of hardship and despair as hunger and uncertainty gripped the population. In the German states, nationalist euphoria swept through the streets. People celebrated not just a military victory, but the long-awaited dream of unity, waving flags and singing patriotic songs. On January 18, 1871, German princes gathered in the glittering Hall of Mirrors at Versailles to proclaim the birth of the German Empire. This moment marked the culmination of decades of political maneuvering and ambition. The choice of Versailles was a deliberate humiliation for France, a symbol of German dominance and a powerful message to the world that the balance of power had shifted. King Wilhelm I of Prussia, after much hesitation, reluctantly accepted the title of German Emperor. It was only after Bismarck's persistent persuasion that he agreed to lead this new empire. The ceremony itself was a grand display of military and aristocratic power. No representatives of the common people were present. The new empire was forged from above by kings and generals. The new empire was born, but regional loyalties and old rivalries remained strong. Many Germans still identified first with their local kingdoms and traditions. For many, the change was jarring. A Bavarian Catholic now found himself part of a Protestant-dominated empire, and old suspicions lingered beneath the surface. The political reality of unification was achieved, but forging a true national identity would take generations. Daily life continued, but the question of what it meant to be German remained unresolved. The Second Reich had begun, but the work of becoming German, of building a shared culture and identity, was just starting. The empire was united in name, but unity of spirit would take time. The map of Europe, and the world, was forever changed. The rise of the German Empire would echo through history, altering the fate of nations for generations to come. The birth of the German Empire transformed Europe overnight. Germany became an industrial and military powerhouse, rivaling Britain and France. Its rapid growth brought pride at home and anxiety abroad. The new empire was built on military strength and authoritarian politics, with power concentrated in the emperor and chancellor. The balance of power in Europe was shattered, fueling rivalries and an arms race. The way Germany was unified, by force, not consensus, left a legacy of militarism and authoritarianism. This legacy would have tragic consequences in the 20th century. The story of 1871 is a lesson in how a nation's birth shapes its destiny. Nations are constructed, not eternal, and their origins matter. The journey from fragmented states to empire was dramatic, filled with ambition and unintended consequences. Understanding this story is key to understanding the forces that still shape our world today.